This is Rudo Radio coming to you from the 559.
Hello and welcome to Rudo Radio, SB Nation and Cage Side Seats weekly wrestling podcast. I am joined as always by Mark Normandin. Mark, how are you doing?
Pretty well. I managed to keep the as always going, even though I am currently in Orlando instead of Portland, Maine.
Fancy.
I'm visiting my newborn niece, who I guess if you guys hear a baby crying or yelling or whatever noises babies make during this podcast, it's that baby.
And not another baby you kidnapped?
If another baby shows up while I'm recording the podcast, I've missed a lot. Lots of things have happened. I'm just locked in this little guest room right now, hoping dogs don't bark and no baby cries. Normally I hope the baby doesn't cry for the baby's sake and for the parent's sake. But right now it's mostly for my sake. And I guess you guys.
Yeah. Well,
but mostly me.
I'm sure that this could turn into a dad podcast. I don't see why not.
Dadcast.
Yeah, Dadcast.
On the bright side, other than that, even if a baby does cry on Thursday, I'm going to the round 2 for the cruiserweight champion challenge. So I will get to see that, which is funny because we'll see just the first hour of the first round on Wednesday. So I guess I will know who advanced in every first round match before I see most of them. Oh well, it'd still be great to see them, while I'm here, because it's not like I'm in Orlando all the time.
Yeah, I think that's. I've talked about this with friends. I feel like Orlando is almost more so than a WrestleMania, like the next great pilgrimage site for WWE fans, where you like go.
I don't know, man. It's really humid. So,
but there's Disney World and Full Sail, so
yeah, it's humid. It's really humid. It's just so humid.
Is it humid?
Just a little. I'm spoiled now because living in Portland, we don't know what humidity is. So, that's it.
Just the good Lord's fresh air in Portland, no humidity.
Yeah, I know like all of Maine isn't like that, but like that's the climate of Portland because I'm 10-minute walk from the water and we don't really have humidity there.
That must be very nice.
It's wonderful.
We wanted to spend some time talking about both Final Deletion and the Draft, and actually also Ultima Lucha Dos Part 1. So we're going to just quickly recap Raw.
Sorry, I just laugh every time I hear the words Final Deletion now, because God damn it, it's amazing. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, it's really great. I almost want to skip Raw and get to Final Deletion, but we have to talk about Final Deletion.
Let's talk about Raw.
Sorry, we have to talk about Raw. Yeah. I actually Freudian slipped Final Deletion. Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of stuff, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, happened, but for Raw it wasn't quite like status quo because Darren Young got an intercontinental title match and Zack Ryder now has a US title match, and there's other things that happened like Vince McMahon picked the commissioners of Raw and SmackDown, which were shockingly Stephanie.
Who will then pick the GMs?
Yeah, Stephanie and Shane, respectively. I really liked some of the stuff they did. The Seth Rollins interview that he did with Roman Reigns is one of the best video segments they've done since like the Attitude Era. It was just.
Was he? I should clarify to everyone listening. I didn't see Raw because I drove 21 hours from Portland to Orlando, and that just wasn't going to happen. So I read a bunch about it, but you will be. I need to know. I need to know some details for this interview because I read that it was great in multiple places, but nobody talked about specifics. So
it was one of your old school, like, I'm going to show parts of, it's a Simpsons joke essentially, where
like the Venus, the candy Venus.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening is Seth is asking Roman a question, and then they cut to what's clearly a pre-recorded video or interview that's not the interview that Seth says he's giving, and it just gets better and better. Like, they didn't just have Seth basically put his like face in an interview that was already made. They like cut a bunch of Roman Reigns interviews together to create this dynamic. Like, it was really, really well done version of that joke. And
okay, I have to go see that.
Yeah, if you're gonna watch anything from this episode, it was legit. Seth Rollins has really, really, really come into his own in the past couple of weeks since he's come back. But this was like, oh, you're a superstar. Like, this is amazing, and it's good television. And the promo that Dean, because after that, Dean comes out and gets into an argument with Seth, and Seth's basically calling him a joke, and Dean just snaps and is like, I'm not a joke. I goof around because I'm a goofy guy, but I will hurt you if I have to. And I thought that was a really nice, it was like in a movie where you have the charming hero and he's funny or whatever, and then he actually has to start doing action. That's what it felt like. It felt like Dean finally coming into his own as someone who can has a second gear where he's no longer goofy Dean, and that was juxtaposed really nicely with the just snide jackassery of Seth that's coupled with the fact that he's the most talented performer on the roster. So I really like the dynamic between those two going in, and they're having a main event match. They're having a title match next week on Raw, presumably to shake things up before the draft. But I thought it was really well done, and like I said, if you're going to watch one segment from Raw on YouTube, make it the Seth Roman interview. Like, they make lower third jokes where it's just like inside things about Roman Reigns. Like, they have an asterisk. He's like, oh, 3-time world heavyweight champion with an asterisk next to it. Like, it's just good stuff. That was really good. Probably the opposite of that for me, unless you want to talk more about Zack Ryder getting a U.S. title shot after losing to Sheamus.
I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good he's propelling himself back up after. I mean, it was like a joke that he was at Mania. Like, we were all happy that he was at Mania because he had never had his music play and everything. But in terms of, like, it was clear he was only there, seemingly only there because of injuries and everything. Like, then it was great that he won. It's good he's still on TV. It's cool that now he's going to be in a feud, for the title that helped make him in the first place, or what, seemingly had made him in the first place. So I'm happy about that, even if you get, murked by Sheamus after. Is Rusev coming out to accept the match after Ryder on the ground is delightful, as I believe it was?
Yes. Rusev just continues to be some sort of magical unicorn hero. He's continuing to do the best work. I think outside of Seth Rollins, honestly, on the show every single week, he's so consistently great, and it's the same but different every week. Like, his characterization maintains, but it's not a situation where he's doing the same thing over and over again. He's doing the same types of things to the same types of people, and it really works. He's really getting all the meat off of that I'm a huge asshole bone. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than the Battle Royal. The Battle Royal was fun, but it was super predictable because it was a bunch of goobers, and then Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, Apollo Crews, Alberto Del Rio, and Darren Young. And then it was literally just a bunch of goobers. Like, it was... I did like that Young won without eliminating anybody. Yes. That he just, he learned how to be smart from Bob Backlund, who is very smart. Yeah. Pretty much is all that happened. Yeah, I did like that. People were like, "Oh, I can't believe he won the. You're making him look so weak," and I was like, "No, that's kind of the point. Like it's not like he eliminated a bunch of people and then they had a botch at the end of the match. They specifically went in with him not eliminating anybody as the idea.
Yeah, it's a fresher way to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
and oh yeah, I almost forgot. Man, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they can fight forever as far as I'm concerned. That was the one other outside of the two title things, the Wyatts and New Day, which we'll get to later, and the Seth and Dean stuff. I really thoroughly enjoyed. Kevin Owens, and he won completely clean against Cesaro in a really good match. With it looks like a new finisher. It's like a weird. It's like
really?
It's a spinning neckbreaker TKO, if that makes sense. So he like has him on his shoulders and he spins out, and that's the neckbreaker. It looked cool. Like I said, he won clean. Him and Sammy just look great fighting each other. And it starts off with Sammy at ringside to do announcing, and then Kevin Owens is in the back complaining to the refs that he's not going to come out until they remove Sammy from the ringside area. So Stephanie comes out and is like, Stephanie comes to Kevin backstage and is like, all right, let's get Sammy out of there. So they bring the three refs down, and then Sammy, not easily, but he leaves. And then after the match, he comes and he starts yelling at, after Owens wins the match, he comes and he starts yelling at the announce team. And he's recreating, essentially, the CM Punk breaking the fourth wall. Like, he starts quoting it, almost. And as he's doing it, Sami Zayn comes through the crowd and just starts beating the crap out of him. It's everything you could ever want from that feud, which is Kevin Owens being a dick, Sami Zayn not knowing how to deal with him being a dick and being a dick back, and then Kevin Owens being awesome, and then Sami Zayn being like, oh, now I know how to get him back, and attacking him after the match. It was everything you could have asked for.
I do appreciate that Kevin Owens brings out the closest to a dark side of Sami Zayn we'll see. Like, Zayn is going, he is such a perpetual babyface type character. But it's like Owens almost makes Zayn into a person Zayn doesn't want to be.
Yes.
And that's why he needs to get rid of him so bad. It's not even the betrayal and everything so much. It's Sammy can't be Sammy with Kevin Owens around. So
those Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
Well, Sammy's obviously a very bright and cheery guy, so this analogy doesn't fit perfectly, but the relationship itself is very similar to the relationship between Batman and Joker, where Batman really should just kill Joker, and Joker his entire life is dedicated to getting Batman to snap. And I feel like obviously Kevin Owens cares about other things, but the like singular focus on getting Sami Zayn pissed off at all times is very similar to the Joker, and it's the same dynamic for Sammy in the Batman sense of just like he really wants to just murder Kevin Owens because he brings out the fact that he wants to murder him, and he feels like if he murders him, the urges will go away.
But then he'll never truly be Sammy again.
Exactly. Hooray for metaphors. Speaking of metaphors, this New Day Wyatt thing was both literally and metaphorically not good at all.
I am so disappointed to hear that, because like when the rumor came up of like New Day at the Wyatt compound, I was like, oh my god, give me, like, inject that intravenously. Like I need that. Yeah,
and I mean, we'll talk about it in a minute because we're not going to spend that much time on the Wyatts and New Day because it was really not worth. I had seen it. I saw it live on Raw. I didn't see Final Deletion until 30 minutes ago. They really it really felt like they tried to both rip off Final Deletion and put like a completely different spin on it, and they failed in both ways. Like, they tried to do like a WWE version of it, and they tried to do the like weirdness of Final Deletion that's more of like a Lucha Underground TNA type of feel to it, and they just didn't succeed really on any level, other than the fact that it looked cool. Like, it looked beautiful for the most part. If you're into Instagram filters, it was great. It looked, I don't want to say better, but it looked more expensive than Final Deletion. And I am not uninterested in where they're going with it, but without even seeing Final Deletion, I thought it was lackluster and like not quite, like half-baked. And then watching Final Deletion, I don't even think they put it in the oven. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it was just dough, and it was disappointing, but it didn't sour me on the feud. It just made me nervous, or not nervous, but it made me disappointed in what I thought would be a good avenue for WWE to go down, which is more stuff like that, and I'm less certain after watching that.
It's a wasted opportunity, if nothing else.
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully if they do more like that, they learn from their mistakes and figure out cool ways to do it. Maybe lean a little more highly stylized lucha for those kind of setups where you do that weird pseudo-realism, that grimy kind of... It's like both real and also cartoon, but there's a balance there, because if you're going to go too far in one direction, which is what Final Deletion did, you have to be fully aware of what you're doing. And that's why Final Deletion works, because it is batshit, but in all the right ways. So if you're just being weird to be weird, or not quite sure what made the thing you're copying work, you're not going to do so great with it.
Yeah, and I think we can start talking about Final Deletion in the context of this now, because I just want to transfer to Final Deletion as quick as possible.
Yeah, sure.
Because what really worked with Final Deletion, and then we talked about this before we started recording, it felt like two brothers doing a home movie together. And that was in a good way, like in the best possible way. Like, there was real, there was a real sense of history, as weird as that sounds, and pathos, and you understood the context of it almost instantaneously, because of both the way in which both Jeff and Matt have had their career happen, especially Matt, because Matt's been doing this stuff. For all of his faults as a performer in ring, I'm not a huge Matt Hardy fan in ring. His interest in, as a very rich professional wrestler who's made more money than I'll ever know what to do with, taking that and using that to experiment with the form is something I've really admired. Even when he was like rich Matt Hardy in ROH, he's consistently done a lot of interesting character stuff with the idea that wrestling is more than just what WWE presents it as. And I thought this was just... This is going to sound crazy, and people are going to make fun of me, but I really thought it was brilliant. I thought it was one of the best wrestling... Unironically, I thought it was one of the best wrestling things I've ever seen, because it had so much in it, and it had so much potential, and there was just so much... You could watch that and rip apart and reconstruct for your own promotion. That it's watching it now, having watched the Wyatt compound stuff, it made it even more disappointing.
I mean, my first reaction to Final Deletion was, this is stupid, but I meant that as a compliment. Like, this is stupid in all of the ways that make wrestling just amazing. Like, you had... Matt Hardy has a drone army. And one of the drones not only has a name, but also shows holograms.
Vanguard 1.
And that is, like, I don't know, the fifth weirdest thing that happens in the match?
I
that there is a hologram army?
Yeah. I think what was interesting is that Matt Hardy's character takes Matt Hardy very seriously, and everyone else thinks Matt Hardy is just crazy. But they're all sucked into this tornado of crazy.
Jeff's reactions to a lot of things. I mean, when Matt Hardy gets the Roman candles and starts shooting them at Jeff, and Jeff is just like, what is wrong with you? And, like, that is Jeff as avatar for everyone watching the match. Like,
yes.
what the fuck, Matt Hardy? What are you doing?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was my favorite part in the entire thing, and the way it was shot was cool. I could rant about that one section for this entire pod. It was just so perfectly weird.
It also included the only moment where Matt Hardy broke character in the entire thing. As he runs over to Jeff, it's just, prepare to be deleted, or I'm paraphrasing, and then notices Jeff has a Roman candle, and he just goes, oh shit. It's like he drops the accent, he drops the middle of the giant cartoonish thing he was about to say, realizes he's going to get shot in the face with fireworks, and just goes, oh shit. But then he runs off all awkwardly toward the dilapidated boat, which he has to scream out loud, it's a dilapidated boat. So we're right back. We're right back where we were with Matt Hardy as a cartoon character, and this is insane again. Yeah, I know, I agree. I think it was brilliant. I really do. It was stupid. It really was, but in the perfect ways. Someone asked me if it was worth watching and if the wrestling was any good. And my answer to them was, the wrestling is bad, but the wrestling is great.
Yes, absolutely. That is the best way to describe it. This is one of those things that I don't think that people who watched it, and I not to call out a specific podcast because I love this podcast, but they talked about it a lot on Cheap Heat, about how we know people are going to think we didn't get this, and we did, we just didn't like it. I think they're not getting the fact that this was, like, Matt Hardy going, here's my idea for what wrestling could be if we really explored the studio space. It wasn't, this is what wrestling is going to be, this is a masterpiece. It was, here's what's been in my head for the past 6 years. And I've edited it down to something that's digestible, but you could, like I said before, there was real thought put into a lot of the stuff, which is not the case for a lot of, there was the symbols everywhere, the way that they set up things, the way that they planned out the shots. There was real effort put into it, and I think that's probably what's missing with the Wyatt stuff, is there was real ideas and concepts and themes and story structure in this that it didn't need, because it was a weird wrestling match. But they went, you can do this with wrestling. Whether or not you want to is a different story, but take things from this and build on them. It was one of, and it's amazing it came from TNA, but it's one of my favorite things in wrestling in a long time. And I know you didn't love the wrestling match, but I didn't even mind the wrestling match. I thought it was totally serviceable for being...
Oh, it was fine. It just what it was surrounded by was so much better.
Yes. To me,
it was kind of a sloppy... It was a sloppy back, which fit, because the Hardys came, I'm sure, I don't know if it was sloppy, but they sure shit came from backyard matches. Yes. So that was great. But as you said, like, the story and the pacing and everything were really great. Everything surrounding it was great. Like, I sat there watching, all the like build up to the match itself with with Senor Benjamin and with the son and with the wife and Matt Hardy sending in a fleet of drones just to distract Jeff long enough to fuck up his lawn. All of that stuff, like, you didn't even need a match attached to a lot of this. And it would just be like brilliant wrestling vignettes, like insane, but just really entertaining and really great. It's the kind of thing where it's too cartoonish for Lucha Underground, really, but there's a version of this that they could do, and everyone would think it's the best thing that's ever happened,
Yes.
Which I feel like is what WWE wanted to get in on before anyone else could copy it, but they did it, it sounds like they did a shitty job of doing it. Which is a shame. I hope it doesn't scare them off from trying that sort of thing in the future, because WWE's production values and, their video team are so great that you feel like if they spent more than a week putting something together.
That was the difference, is it had the WWE feel. Like I said, the work wasn't put in, but it wasn't just the work wasn't put in. It's the life's work, the thought and the ideas that have built over a couple of months or a couple of years were all put into this, and that just didn't happen with the WWE. And like I said, it was really cool. The way that the WWE stuff was shot was cool. The ideas behind it were cool, but the execution from like a emotional connection standpoint wasn't there, and that's because they just did it as a thing, as part of their show. Like, the closest thing that I can think of that the WWE has done to Final Deletion in a weird way is the empty arena match between The Rock and Mankind, where they constructed a world to have a match in, as opposed to having a match in a part of the world that they happen to be in, if that makes sense. Like,
No, it does. It really does.
Yeah. And I think that was the main failure, is they just went from, oh, come to the Wyatt compound. And I understand we know the Wyatt compound, but we know the barn. We don't really have an idea of the grounds. We don't have an idea of that world. So we're just going to this place to film on location, basically. It's the same as when you have like a Long Island Sound match, it felt like. Or,
Yeah.
oh, we're here, so why don't we just take a camera? Where
You should take time. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
continue.
You should take time to build up the compound as a character.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
And you could do a lot with that sort of thing. And it's not like you have to do one compound match ever. You know, you could find other teams to do this. You could pull it out just like Undertaker used to pull out Hell in a Cell matches, or the Boiler Room matches or whatever. Like, you could make it a thing. But, you know, I don't want to say they have to do better than that. I really should, but I haven't seen it, so, you know.
Yeah, and this one, the other
they
thing
should
is,
do better than that.
This was really, the WWE stuff was stylized wholly separate from their normal stuff in a way that you can watch TNA, watch Final Deletion, and be like, oh, same production company. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they're doing all these weird shots and they're shooting in this place in this separate world, but like I said, it was basically like you were watching a video package of a fight between the Wyatts and the New Day in a way that you were watching a fight between Matt and Jeff. Yeah, it was. You should check it out just to see, but it's not imperative in the way that Seth Rollins interviewing Roman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch. I have Rod recorded on my DVR, so I will watch the whole thing. You know, again, I'm in Orlando, so no.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, I was outvoted, so we had to watch The Bachelorette here last night live. So normally that's a Tuesday thing.
I like how the problem wasn't. The problem wasn't The Bachelor. You're like, of course we're going to watch Bachelorette. I was just hoping to watch Raw first.
The Bachelor is basically sports entertainment in a different form. So. Oh
yeah, all of the reality shows are.
Yeah.
So, did you have anything else you wanted to say about Final Deletion, or did you want to start rolling around on the draft?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit of draft.
Yeah. So, what we wanted to do with the draft, because we're actually not going to be here next week. I don't know. We haven't made that announcement yet, right?
Yeah, let's make this announcement, I guess, on the podcast. We might not have an episode next week because Nick is going to be somewhere that doesn't have internet. Yeah, so we might figure out a way to do it, but if we don't, we will absolutely talk about the draft, you know, after it happens. So
sorry, everyone.
It just might be the week after it happens instead of the day after.
Let the dust settle. That's what I say. Let the dust settle, and me not get divorced before I get married by missing a family trip.
Yeah, guys, do Nick a solid, okay?
And be okay with the fact that we're gonna have to talk about the draft this week, and then 2 weeks from now, probably, we'll let you know via social media. But the way we wanted to talk about it was we were gonna do a quick, super quick, I don't even want to call it a mock draft, our top 5 prospect list. Does that make more sense to you?
Yeah, Yeah, no, I'm into it.
Than like a straight like, oh, I'd pick Randy Orton number one, because that's silly to me.
Hey, what if I was just gonna pick Randy Orton number one?
Oh well, I'm not saying picking Randy Orton number one is the problem.
Whoa, I don't know. It sounds like you get a problem.
Okay, you want to know the first Christmas gift my fiance ever got me?
What?
It was a framed picture of the No Mercy poster where he's holding the dove in his hands. So I, like I am with Ivelisse, am straight ride or die with Randy Orton. He would be my number one pick, but that's not what we're going to talk about, Mark. We're going to talk about...
Okay, good. But I'm glad, because I don't think we've talked about Orton in this way before. I also love Randy Orton, and I'm excited about Orton Lesnar, but there will be time for that later.
Yes.
Draft.
And I also wanted to talk about sleeper for both of us, that somebody that either team is going to pick that's really going to end up being one of the major stars. But let's start. I'm going to start with my number one overall pick. Or not overall pick. My number one prospect, period, point blank. The best guy I think you could have on your show. The one with the highest upside. Jason Jordan. That's my guy.
Whoa!
If I'm picking somebody, he's the guy. There's a couple of different reasons. I think he has real potential as an in-ring performer. I think he has so much charisma it makes my heart hurt. And I think he has a great story, both from a wrestling standpoint, and he seems like a genuinely good kid, like a good person. And I think you could also have him and Gable still be a tag team with the idea that he's eventually going to move on. So if I were picking prospects from a pure talent standpoint, Jason Jordan would be my top prospect, my 5-star recruit, as it were. 5-tool prospect, I should say, not 5-star recruit.
Jordan's a great one. I can't separate him at this point from Gable. I think of them as like a package deal at this point. So I didn't even consider like them individually as a prospect. My brain went straight to Seth Rollins.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, he's Seth. He can, even if he's a heel forever, he's gonna be a top heel for a long time. He's amazing in the ring. If he ever does switch back to being a face, he obviously has, he has the ability to do that. There's plenty of storyline behind that. But even if he's just the nemesis of whoever the face happens to be on his program, he's a great fit for it, and he can wrestle anyone essentially. So that's my guy. He is, he's the man for a reason.
Yeah, I totally. He would, if we were actually picking like a real draft, he'd be my number one pick. He's like I said earlier, he's the most talented guy on the roster from top to bottom. Also, he's young relatively. Like AJ Styles is, I think, close in terms of talent and total package, but AJ Styles is 7-8 years older than him. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, he has everything. He's a high flyer, great technical wrestler, great on the mic. He's really coming into his own as a character with real power and presence to it. Yeah, and I'm in total agreement with you as your number one from a normal draft perspective. Jason Jordan is more of like a special project guy you draft in the first overall and hope he can contribute 4 years down the road.
It's your high ceiling high school arm.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And my second guy is Kevin Owens, who is your really great first baseman who can also play a little bit of right field. But they're like, no, but you're really good. You're good enough at hitting at first base that will take your really good defense. He has turned himself into... He's one of those guys that when he says the Kevin Owens show, you get the feeling him and his character believe it, if not necessarily the show believes it, but the show is aware of it as a possibility, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, I don't know much else to say. The only thing I would say is that the problem with picking some guy like a guy like Kevin Owens, and by a guy like Kevin Owens I mean Kevin Owens, you have to bring Sammy with him wherever you go, because they have to fight forever. So that's
that's not a bad third for you to have.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough. He's and for I don't want to say for a guy his size, for a guy with his style, he is remarkably versatile. Like, for a brawler style, he can really expand way past that. But he is such a good bar fight type of just beat the crap out of you guy, which I think is the best type of performer to have. Like, Stone Cold's the perfect example. A guy that can tumble with anybody, but can also do some high-flying stuff. Not high-flying stuff, but agility stuff and some technical stuff. He's got it all. Who do you have after Kevin, or did you want to talk about Kevin for a little bit?
No, it's okay. I think you hit everything with Kevin. I mean, he was probably going to be my 2. Because I love Kevin Owens so much for all the reasons that you said. I think my 2 would be Becky Lynch.
Ooh, yeah.
I think Becky has the potential to be the babyface for the women's division at the most important time in WWE Women's Wrestling. So, she's amazing in the ring. If they, she's great on the mic time they give her, but I feel like if you loosen her up and made her the star, that's someone who would validate all the time you were investing in her. So Lynch, I really think Becky Lynch is just incredible.
That's a hell of a pick, or not a pick, but a prospect. She is like you said, she's such a good babyface, and she can work with anybody. And again, I mean, this is going to be the case with everybody we mentioned, including Sasha would be my third person. There's everyone in that division can go. Even Dana, who's not great, but she's getting there, and she gets it if she doesn't quite have the ability to do it yet. Yes, for me, Becky's the face, and I think Sasha's the tweener, and I think Charlotte's the heel. I think you have like a hard baby, and then you have the one in this case Sasha, who is just looking out for herself, but isn't a monster the way that Charlotte is. But Sasha, the crowd loves her. I love her, and that's important that I love her. She's shown an ability to translate past NXT. That's just huge. She pops. She really just pops when she enters a room, and she owns everything she touches. I think she's kind of hamstrung right now by having to deal with Charlotte on the mic, who's just not where she is right now. But I think once she gets the title, because I think she's going to win at SummerSlam, I think once she gets the title, we'll really see the Boss as a character that has a meaning beyond her just being a badass. Because right now, the Boss is a stand-in for her being a badass. When she's the Boss, because she's the champ, I think that's when we'll really see, like, the lights, everything just light up for Sasha.
And it'll work in both ends of the alignment spectrum too, because she'll start out as a face, but eventually you assume she goes down some kind of dark path, and then Becky or Bayley comes, and they get to have their moment against Sasha. So she's super versatile, and she was the one I was dating. Just a little pause before I said Becky, because I had to make my decision. Do I want Becky or Sasha? Is that but they're both great. This is the there are no right answers portion of the prospect list for sure.
Who's your
my third? Well, he's big, and I guess his entire name is E.
That's a good
Big E, yeah. I think the dude is hilarious. He's just this ridiculous ball of charisma. He just keeps getting better and better in the ring, and he showed a lot of promise early on. But he is just improving in that regard. He was a bodyguard. He was just there because he was big when he first came up, and now dude can go with pretty much anyone. He doesn't wrestle like a guy who is under 6 feet tall at all, which is just so impressive and a testament to how strong he is. But I think that guy is a future WWE champion, and not just because the brand split is coming and he might be world champion or whatever. Like that dude is a future WWE champion, so why would he not be this high on my list?
Yeah, I love Big E. He's so funny. He's a genuinely. They have a lot of those guys now, but he's one of those guys that's genuinely funny. He's a funny guy who makes funny jokes that aren't written for him. He's just like a humorous dude you'd want to hang out with. And although he was good in NXT when he was champion, what he's done as it progressed in terms of his progression as a performer on the main roster is among the better in the company. He's only like, I feel like 50% of his potential, because they protect him in a way that you don't see a lot anymore, where they let him do a bunch of really cool stuff and they let him bit by little bit expand what he does in a given match, but they don't go, all right, well, you're just going to go out there and you're going to figure it out. They gave him a great incubator to develop his talent, and it's really starting to pay off. My choice for my number 4 choice, unless you want to add anything else about Big E.
Oh no, go with your 4.
I'm going to keep it in the big family. Big Cass is actually who I am going to say is the 4th best prospect in the company in the full roster right now. They seemingly feel the same way. I think he still has to. The reason he's not higher, the reason he's not number 1, honestly, is because his mic work isn't there, and I don't know if his ring work would ever get to somebody like Jason Jordan. But he is extremely charismatic. The crowd loves him. He can talk. He just feels like he has potential to be very good on the mic. And right now, he's just a guy that's pretty good at remembering his lines. And there are moments where he slips into just being comfortable with what he's saying and not just waiting for the crowd to react. And once he starts to really develop that skill, I think he's hot-shotted to a main event title feud. They really seem to be behind him, and so do I. And I think he has a very interesting story again. I think the idea that he was a pre-med student at NYU and then went, I want to wrestle. That's what I've wanted to do my entire life. I'm going to do it. And then met some dude he had been friends with the years before, and they became super best friends in real life is like a really great story. And I think those are really important in terms of building a character out long term. You have to give them an actual backstory as a human being, and I think he has a great one to go along with a lot of talent, great size, great charisma, and improving skill set on the mic, let's call it. Because like I said, he can cut a promo. He's just has a tendency to talk in a way where he's waiting to say the right thing at the right time. And it's just weird. There's a weird flow to it, but he's starting to be smoother on the mic. Did you have any feelings about the Big Cass, Big E? Do you have I would assume you prefer Big E over Big Cass, right?
I do. I love Big Cass, and again, that's a guy I think is a future WWE champion. But Big E's my guy. I've been behind him for a long time, and I think he is total package in that regard. I do think, like you said, that Cass will get there, but right now there are moments definitely where it feels like you can tell he's reading something that Enzo wrote, and Enzo wrote it for him. And I think it might be played up a little bit sometimes because that's like the character difference, and their career started with like Enzo bringing him in as his big, who he was like helping along, that sort of thing, which was comical because the 7-footer needed help from the 5-foot dude. But yeah, I think you'll get there. Big E's just closer for me right now.
And who do you have next?
I'd say Bray Wyatt.
I didn't even think of Bray Wyatt because he's been around for so long, but that totally makes sense.
There's so much potential in him. As I really liked his work as a heel away from the Wyatt family. And that brief glimpse we got of him as a face, that so brief glimpse we got, there's so much more potential there. And, if you're doing this whole rearranging and you're able to work Bray Wyatt in a way where he gets to be just this kick-ass, one of the best in the world wrestlers, performers that the industry has, everyone will feel about him the way that they should feel about him. So Bray Wyatt, number 4.
I think a part of Bray's problem is we all see so much potential in him that we constantly go, well, he could be better. And it's like he's in WrestleMania matches with The Undertaker, and they're not like the greatest matches of all time, but he's putting in the work. He worked with John Cena at WrestleMania. He's really... That's why I didn't even think of him, because you're like, you have this idea, or one has an idea of him as this guy that's not quite living up to his potential, and it's because his potential is so enormous that even the stuff that we would be happy if anybody else was doing, we're like, oh, come on, Bray, you can be so much more than that. I wish I would have thought of Bray. My final pick, or not pick, but again, prospect would be Nia Jax. Would be who I think, and I've said this a bunch of times before, I constantly sing Nia's praises. I think she is the future of the women's division from at least I don't want to say physical standpoint, but I think she is going to be significant in the way that young Big Show was, and that she's going to push everybody to a new level. Because you're going to have to compete with somebody that's way bigger from a visual perspective, way bigger than you, who can do a lot of really athletic stuff and understands what's going on in the ring in a way that you don't have to hold their hand to get them through a match. And if you don't have to hold somebody with that level of physical talent's hand through a match, the same way with Big Cass, the potentials are limitless, because you can do the special thing about Brock Lesnar is he doesn't have to fake anything. He just can grab you and throw you across a ring. You don't have to make him look like he can do it. And I think Nia Jax has that a lot too. Like, those leg drops look like they hurt your face because she just landed on your face with her leg, which is bigger than your head. Like, she's just a tough character, and I love her. I mean, I might be higher on her than most people, but I really see so much potential in Nia Jax long term. I think she could really be the future of the women's division if they do everything right with her. She's, again, like a great center who's pretty good in college, and you feel like it give you 20 and 10 in the in the regular season, but has potential to be like one of the real stars of the league. I think that's where she is right now. She's going to be serviceable to very good, maybe an all-star or whatever the wrestling equivalent to that would be, but I don't know if she can quite get to where I think she should be, which is physical talent, charisma, like overall package wise. It's gonna sound crazy because she just started, but she has all the makings of a future Hall of Famer. If you were to build one from scratch, I think that they want her to look
the old Randy Orton adage.
Yes, exactly. Am I too high on Nia, or
No, I was considering Nia, but I'm not. I keep going back and forth in my head between like someone who's ready now or ready later, because I feel like your list is a little more future focused than mine, and mine has future, but it's like using the guys who are already there in a way. So no, for the list you were building, the way you were interpreting Prospect, I think this fits perfectly with what you were doing.
Who do you have along your lines in the more?
Is this fifth? My fifth?
Yes. This is the final deletion.
Oh boy, and then we still have a sleeper, right?
Yes.
All right, good. Oh man, I just had I think Kalisto.
Oh man, your list is real solid.
I think you let Kalisto loose. Because supposedly he's only done a very small percentage of what he is capable of doing. And if you get to the point where you want him to be the actual heir apparent to Rey Mysterio, he can do it. And that's a guy you want. That's a guy you want in your show. He doesn't get used much now, and I've said multiple times that I think part of that is they're not ready for him. to be a main eventer, but like once you open that box, you're not closing it again. Everyone will know just how dope Kalisto is, and you won't be able to do anything. You will have to have him in the main event. So like he's going to get to that point eventually, and yeah. I would want him to do it in my made up company.
Yeah, he's very similar to Big E in that sense of where they're not protecting him. They're just not showing you all that he can do, with the idea that once they unleash him, he's going to be a super duper star. So it's not even a holding pattern. It's literally like, we're going to wait until the playoffs before we start running that play. So my sleeper.
Oh, did you do a fifth?
Yes.
Oh, it's not your fifth? Okay.
Yeah, and I was my fifth. My sleeper.
Before you get into your sleeper.
Okay.
Because this wouldn't be your sleeper. I am amazed you didn't have Rusev on your list.
I'm brokenhearted. I mean, I'm pretty sick. We talked about it.
But at least, like I said, the way you designed your list seemed to be very like literal prospect in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So I done fucked up, not including Rusev, but I'm okay with it. I made my bed and now I have to lie in it.
It's just because he's already so currently great.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I guess I try to avoid someone who's already U.S. title holder and should be world heavyweight champion 17 times over. And yeah, that's not a coincidence. That is, he should be the one who breaks Ric Flair's record. I want to make that very clear.
There you go. I've given you time to make amends.
Thank you.
So who's your sleeper?
Dana Brooke.
It's like, oh no, you forgot who his sleeper was.
No, Dana Brooke is my sleeper. I believe, and again, this is something I've said a bunch, I believe very, very strongly in the future of the women's division. I think it is right now the best division in any company. In terms of top to bottom talent, the cruiserweights might end up catching up to them, but in the WWE. But for right now, I really, Dana Brooke, again, she gets it. She really, really gets what her role is, and she's building towards being great at it. And she seems to, and this is just gonna be me extrapolating out from working from Breaking Ground, but she really seems like the type of person that's going to put in the work to be great. And I enjoy her. I enjoy her personality, both as a heel and as a real human being. I root for her to be good at her job, if that makes sense. And she's really getting good at it. I can't wait for Emma to come back, because when Emma comes back, and
the best.
Dana can really be Dana in the way that she wants, I think it's going to be the best possible thing for the women's division, because right now I think Charlotte is... I love Charlotte, but there's a lot of issues with her, and I don't think Dana's helping them right now, other than making it so she doesn't have to face Sasha yet. But yeah, I see real potential as maybe not like a future world champion or Hall of Famer, but as a really important and maybe not well liked, but appreciated part of the women's division for the next 10 to 15 years. She seems dedicated, she's funny, and she's very athletic. So I feel like the sky's the limit for her for the most part, and but I don't think she's anywhere near that yet. So that's why she would be my sleeper.
I mean, anyone who can make memorable moments with just the microphone. Dana Brooke is one of those people who, when she's hurt, if she's capable of standing, she should always be on the outside with a friend or something, just screaming.
I know the rules.
All that stuff's perfect. Okay, because you talked up Rusev, I'm going to add a Brando to my list. I also have a sleeper. But the person that Kalisto finished just ahead of on my prospect list is Neville.
Oh, man.
I could say many of the same things about Neville that I said about Kalisto already. But I went with Kalisto. So we'll just leave it at that. But man, Neville is, I feel like, the kind of flippy spinny that even you were like, yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
Yeah, totally. He is transcendently physically talented. He's not just acrobatic. He's next level. I feel like I'm watching an Olympian type of stuff.
It's incredible. When
He's a remarkable athlete.
I see a lot of his flips in slow motion in replay, and I still don't understand how he made his body do those things. It's not like when a big guy does a moonsault. Like, you get it. I understand the basic physics of the moonsault. It's impressive that they can do it. But Neville is contorting himself in ways where I'm like, that's what like the slow motion replay of a cat chasing something through the air looks like. And humans are not humans and their spines are not supposed to be able to do that. And yet Neville does that. So love that guy.
That was me doing the that's a delicious meatball kiss to the sky. I love it. Who is your sleeper?
Alexa Bliss. Who I
your
think
list is killer, dude. I really love your list.
Well, I'm glad. I like it too. I think Alexa, is a very different character than Nia in terms of, future of women's division, but I think she's just as important to it. When she was a face, you could see the potential there, but there was so much work to be done, both as a character and in the ring. The switch to heel, I mean, a lot of people say they like being a heel better because it's easier in some ways to be like a jerk. But I feel like her transition to heel was a different kind of speeding up, where like you realize that she's just such a better heel. Like the cutesy cheerleader friendly kind of like glitter fairy thing was not who Alexa should be. She should be this 5 feet of just badass, who is willing to grab much larger opponents by the throat in the ring and have you believe it, and have the person she grabbed by the throat believe that they are in trouble, even though she is 5 feet tall. And her facial expressions and her mannerisms and her promos, she is the total package, and her ring work is getting better and better the more they incorporate her being a bad guy into it. And I really think that's a future women's champion. That is a future major main event level heel for them. And, if the roster wasn't so busy right now, I'd say pop her into WWE right now. But, she's got some unfinished business at NXT, and there's enough going on with stories that you don't want her to get buried, but that's why she's a sleeper.
Yeah.
I don't mean buried in the shovel sense. I just mean buried as in there's so many wrestlers.
Yeah, she just get lost in the crowd. And she's not very tall, so it'd be hard to see her through the crowd. Speaking of NXT, did you want to talk real quick about last week's episode before we get into our review of the first part of Ultima Lucha Dos?
I mostly just want to say that 2 out of 3 falls match was just perfect. It was perfect. Those two teams understand each other so well. And I think Brandon Stroud wrote about this a little bit. And I, was nodding just very, very aggressively the whole time I'm reading it. But American Alpha are essentially unstoppable unless you don't. As long as you can keep them from winning long enough, you can beat them. And that is very much an easier said than done kind of thing. But the Revival are perfect for it because they bend the rules just often enough and just far enough that they can keep a match going until the moment where they can win it. And that makes them the only real challenge that exists for American Alpha. And that's perfect because otherwise American Alpha will never, ever lose to anybody. So having this very smartly crafted reason for them to lose to a specific team who just understands what makes them great and also makes them weak to them. It's just fantastic wrestling.
I wish I had something to add other than I look forward to. I don't honestly like that. That's perfectly encapsulate everything great about both the Revival and American Alpha. That their American Alpha isn't this super team. It's 2 extraordinarily talented performers with real flaws, real human flaws, and the vibe that you get from the Revival is so old school confident in their ability to work their match, both from a kayfabe and outside, just straight performance perspective. They trust their ability to put on a good match, and it translates in a very real way to their actual performances that I always find. Scott Dawson could sell ice to an Eskimo. He is just, I believe everything that dude says. There is no, oh, well, I mean, he's just saying that because he's supposed to, because he's the heel. It's like, no, you really are the best tag team on this planet. And you know it, everybody else knows it, and even before it was literally the case, you made us feel, or they made me feel like it was the case even before they won a title, before they were even competing for the titles when they first started. There's a real sense of forward momentum that a lot of tag teams don't have, that I am extraordinarily excited to see the Revival on the main roster at some point, once they're done with all of this being the best team in the history of NXT thing. I love the Revival. There's nothing, I can't think of a single thing I don't like about them. So I guess it's time to talk about Ultima Lucha Dos, unless you want to add anything else about how awesome the Revival is.
Oh no, I think we handled both sides of that as much as we need to. I'm excited to see who they face in Brooklyn, but that's about all I want to say about that.
And that's all I got to say about that. So yeah, we wanted to spend some time on Ultima Lucha Dos Part 1.
Sure was violent.
Super violent.
So much violence.
I didn't love the Tejano Son of Havoc match.
Well,
I liked it.
As we discussed last week, Tejano sure is a guy who wrestles.
Yeah. And I love Son of Havoc, Son of Hammock. That would be a great gimmick, though. But the first match, the Cage Mac match, worth the price of admission, 150%.
Better, worse, or as good as last year's. Yeah,
I think it was as good. I think it was as good
Ooh.
within the context of the rest of what they were trying to do with it.
Yes.
The individual match itself, maybe not, but there was also stuff that was going to happen after, so you can't tell the same exact story. I thought just the Mac is he's special to me. He's one of the more special guys in Lucha Underground. He reminds me a lot of Kevin Owens. Just this really talented guy that 10 years ago wouldn't be allowed to wrestle the way he does. It's just really awesome to see a guy who the WWE hasn't tainted, not to put too fine a point on, really get a chance to thrive on a mid-card level in another company, in a way that you just don't feel like that where a guy that you could see in the WWE but isn't in the WWE really thriving in a company at a level that isn't main event. It's cool to see that still exists. It's like seeing a guy be U.S. champion in the territorial era. If that's I guess the closest for me. I really love Mac. I was surprised he lost the final match, but I was also fine with the result. I love Son of Hammock. Son of Havoc, not Hammock.
I loved that Cage lost to the Mac because of essentially a human mistake.
Yes.
Which it's just so great because this whole I'm a machine, I'm not a man, I'm a machine. And then he's not paying attention, so he just slips and falls on his ass on beer and then gets rolled up for it. It's funny. It's as close to cartoonish, I feel like, as we get besides his muscles. So it was good, and it's a good way to not do away with the results of a year ago and show that there's still probably more to do with Cage and Mac. And it doesn't have to happen right away, but there's more there because Mac won because Cage screwed up and Mac knew to take advantage. If there's no beer to slip on next time, is that what's going to happen? Is the cinder block going to survive, or is Mac going to wear it?
Yeah, I will be interested if Season 3 is the story of Cage finally getting his shit together and winning the Lucha Underground title. I would buy in completely on that. Not that he's like a ne'er-do-well or something like that, but it happens to him over and over. Like, outside of Matanza, he kind of can easily get. I mean, Chavo stole stole the Gift of the Gods match from him, basically. Like, I think that would be interesting to see going forward, is whether or not Cage can meld the machine and the man into some sort of unstoppable destroyer, or if he's going to go one way too much or the other. Because I think they understand that Cage is over, and because what I love about Lucha Underground is when they find out somebody's over, they don't go, let's do this storyline that will maximize like profits. They go, let's do this storyline that will be the best creative decision for everybody involved. And I feel like with Cage right now, they're on the cusp of having him not be the first match at a Ultima Lucha Dos. Not that that's a bad thing, but that he'll move to the second day of it.
Yeah. And man, the whole day was essentially this one match, because it was for a unique opportunity was a tournament. Now I didn't know, and this is my own fault, because my Lucha experience is very heavily Lucha Underground. Mm-hmm. I know some AAA stuff, but not a lot. So when Son of Havoc had to have a match against this very famous Lucha Doctor, I didn't know who he was. The crowd lost their minds. And I read plenty about him after to realize, like, oh, this dude is a big deal. And he did not look his age. Like, you know, he walked in and I was like, how old is this guy? If he, you know, he's such a legend. I was like, holy shit, he's in his 50s. Like, his body does not look like it's in his 50s, so that's great. As far as like presentation goes and him showing up and doing stuff. I didn't know who he was, though, so I think that hurt it for me a little, but I understand as well, like, this was the best they could do with the crowd losing it and showing that this guy is a big deal. So it's not like a huge problem or they didn't mess up or something. It's just me going, oh, I don't know who this guy is. I feel like I just missed out on something.
Yeah, no, you totally got the sense, and I feel the same way. I'm not particularly familiar with anything that isn't WWE, to be completely honest, because I'm the worst. And Lucha Underground now, I feel like I've watched. I'm not quite already super fan.
Can we insert a Ben Schwartz from Parks and Rec saying the worst, just saying the worst after you say that? I just want him to say that. I can't do it. So we would need the actual Benny Schwa singing the worst.
The worst.
Yeah, you can't do it either. You really need to hold it.
Money, please.
That's what the podcast needs. Sound effects, and all of them. Ben Schwartz characters.
Oh, Ben. So his character on Comedy Bang Bang too.
Yeah, is that a character or is that just?
That's Benny just hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, I was not familiar with, as Mr. Brandon Shroud puts it, Dr. Ethan Wagner Jr. Yeah, he was awesome. I really liked the match. I was disappointed in the sense that wasn't a very Lucha thing for them to do, it felt like. Not in the sense of screwing somebody over after something, but they, like, didn't even let it breathe. They were like, oh, you lose the chance to be... It wasn't like, oh, you get a title shot. It was like, oh, you're going to be the main event next year's show. Oh, wait, no, you're not. But other than that, I loved this. Like, it felt like a weird thing to promise somebody, literally just to take it away. It would have made more sense if it was
it's such a Cueto thing, though. Like, yeah. You should know if that offer seems too good to be true, you should take the other one.
Yes, and you get money.
I was kind of hoping Havoc would, like, he would do the ridiculous babyface thing, and he's like, I'm taking this money because I don't need your guaranteed title opportunity. I'm going to earn it myself, you know? Sitting there going like, yes, please, take the money and do that. Be that kind of face. But he was like, oh, no, you can never buy me. And it's like, oh, no, he's not trying to buy you. He's trying to trick you. He's trying to trick you, Son of Havoc. Oh, he tricked you.
Yeah. I will be excited to see if they develop the Son of Havoc. Because Son of Havoc and Dario have always had tension for whatever reason. I would like Son of Havoc to be elevated on the show in part with a feud with, something where Dario is constantly targeting him. But yeah, I understood it, and I wasn't angry with it. It was just the combination of that just being a weird, like it would have to me made more sense if he got the last spot in the battle royal. I'm totally blanking. What's the name of the battle royal?
Oh, Aztec Warfare.
Yes, Aztec Warfare. Sorry, everyone. If he got like the final entrant in Aztec Warfare, and then that was taken away, that would make more sense to me than like Ultima Lucha Dos a year from now main event. That was a very WWE thing to do, but I got it, and I was okay with it. But that combined with me not knowing who Dr. Wagner Jr. was totally, like I'm sure I've heard of him in passing, but again I'm the worst. Yeah, it wasn't a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination. The first match was one of my favorite matches of the year. I liked the second match. I thought the third match and the fourth match were very good. I was just mildly disappointed relative to how hype I was before the match for the result, but I didn't feel like I wasted an hour. I just wish that I could have been more emotionally invested in Son of Havoc during that last match, as opposed to being like, well, yeah, of course, you deserve to lose this title shot.
Just take the money. Always take the money.
Yes. And leave the cannoli. Or do you take the cannoli? I've only seen that movie once. It insists upon itself. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about Ultima Lucha Dos?
No, I'm gonna, even though I'm in Orlando and I don't know if they have El Rey, I hope they have El Rey down here. I mean, not in Orlando in general, specifically at my brother-in-law's house. Because I want to watch that. I don't want to wait until I'm home on Sunday or whatever to have to watch that, because I am, as the Mojo would say, I am hyped. I am staying hyped for Ultima Lucha.
Yeah, this week's going to be great. And also, Nakamura Finn on NXT this Wednesday, I believe. So, between those two.
I gotta watch that too.
Yeah, what a great night of wrestling television.
And Cruiserweight Challenge. First episode of the Cruiserweight Challenge is on after NXT.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And I guess this is now a good time as any to say what we watched, what we gonna watch. What I watched this past week. What I'm going to watch is the Cruiserweight Classic. Full stop. I don't need to explain why. What you should watch is the bracketology for the Cruiserweight Classic. It might be, and I said this to you, and I've basically said this to everybody that was willing to listen to me for more than 3 seconds. That is one of my favorite things WWE has. It is the best thing, as far as I'm concerned, they've ever done on the network. And it is one of my favorite things they've ever done. It was like the perfect platonic ideal of a WWE version of bracketology for like ESPN. It was a real sports show done through the lens of the WWE, and it was perfect. It was, I don't care if people think I'm overhyping it. It was as good as Final Deletion in the complete opposite direction of, there was real thought put into this. There was real segments. There was real ideas put forth. They structured it in an interesting way. They got good interviews. Like, there's literally like a 5 to 10 minute interview where it's Mauro Ranallo, who is exceptional on the show, and Daniel Bryan, who the first half kind of gets into his groove, and then the second half it really starts to take off. But they spend about 5 to 10 minutes with him, Daniel Bryan, and the Brian Kendrick, talking about what it was like to train together with Shawn Michaels, and it's one of the best off-the-cuff segments I can ever remember watching in wrestling. I cannot recommend the bracketology special for the Cruiserweight Classic highly enough. It is fantastic.
I plan on watching that. I have not watched it yet. Maybe I'll sneak that in tonight on Tuesday night before bed. I guess what I watched was Final Deletion, and then a bunch of vines from Final Deletion, because hearing about the extraordinary xylophone makes me laugh every fucking time.
So here's a little insight for the people. When we record the podcast, Mark and I talk, and then I test the audio to make sure that there's no crackling. And
I didn't know if you were going to be able to hear that.
Yeah, and while I mute my mic, I do not mute Mark. And sometimes Mark will be talking, and sometimes he'll just be talking to himself, and all you hear is click, 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 click. That's hilarious. Click, 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 click. Oh, that's so good. I love this match. Click, 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 click. Oh, Brother Nero.
It's just me watching vines from Final Deletion. I was kind of hoping you heard the vines as you were trying to test everything, but no, it was just me.
Yeah, just going, oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, and it was great because it was happening in 6-second intervals over and over.
So yeah, I'm gonna watch more of those because they make me laugh. And I'm also watching, as I mentioned earlier, Cruiserweight Challenge round 2, whatever quarterfinals. I don't know. Yeah, probably. Yeah, they're doing 4 of these, so yeah, quarterfinals. In person on Thursday at Full Sail. Man, I don't know what to expect in a lot of ways, especially because I'm watching the second round before the first round airs. But I'm very excited to see it. It's going to be really cool to see people that, I thought 2.5 hours from Portland to Providence, Rhode Island was a pretty good trip to see guys like Drew Gulak. But now I've apparently literally driven all the way from Portland to Orlando, Florida, not only to watch them, but that is a major part of what I'm going to be doing here this week.
Yeah, that is truly awesome, and I am extremely jealous of you. So yeah, that's our episode for this week. You can catch me at the Nixter on Twitter. It's at THEN1CKSTER, and I think that is number 7. It is a lucky number 7. The amount of times I spelled that correctly right in a row. Mark, where can they catch you?
You can find me on Twitter, Mark_Normandin, and that is Mark with the C. You can read my wrestling writing at sbnation.com/wrestling. You can get other SB Nation wrestling content, not necessarily from me, at cagesideseats.com. I want to remember to throw that in. You can read my baseball writing at sbnation.com/MLB, and if you're a Red Sox fan, at overthemonster.com.
As always, you can rate and review us on iTunes, 5 stars preferably, but not only. This week, Mark, what would you like them to have as the review?
It's an extraordinary xylophone.
That's perfect. Well, I'd like to think of us as an extraordinary xylophone, so that really touches me in the heart space.
Make sure to type it in Matt Hardy's accent, though.
Yes, with squiggles on the side.
I'm not sure what font that should be, but you'll figure it
out. Creeper, I believe. And you can check us out on SoundCloud.com/Rudo Radio. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Mark?
No, I probably have to go and see my family or something now. That's probably
gross. All right. Well, I'm gonna go see my kittens, and so I guess, and my lovely fiance. So I guess it's time, as good as ever, to say bye.